Good morning, Baltimore. It is Monday, March 23rd, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Early Birds podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside Baltimore Sun columnist Josh Tolentino. Josh, we just left Camden Yards, the first of two exhibition games, tune-ups ahead of the regular season. Got to look at that scoreboard. It was pretty nice.
Man, not just the scoreboard, a lot of new additions around Camden Yards. I know it was just an exhibition. We got one more today, Monday over in D.C., but man, it's buzzing around town. Opening day just a few days away here.
Yeah, it is coming up fast. The Orioles are come back to Baltimore from spring training after finishing just under 500 in Grapefruit League play. As I said, they played two exhibition games against the Washington Nationals. The first already been played, an 8-1 win over the Nats here in Baltimore. And then as you all are listening this Monday morning, they are heading down to D.C. To take on the Nationals at Nationals Park. So a couple of news and notes here. We're just going to do Orioles today. It is opening week, a lot to talk about with this team heading into opening day, and we have a jam-packed schedule for you guys. Not only do we have today when we'll be looking back at what we learned from spring training, but we'll also have an episode for you Thursday morning as our season preview, which we're really excited to do. We'll have some predictions, kind of go back and forth on a few things like that, getting ready for the season. And then we'll also touch base again after the game, have a little emergency type episode for you guys just to talk about opening day. Because I always, they have opening day on Thursday, and I get you have to leave the next day open in case of rain or whatever. But at the same time, you build up so much momentum, everyone gets all excited for opening day, and there's just no baseball the next day. It feels criminal to me.
Well, hopefully the forecast stays clean. And for our viewing audience at home on YouTube, look at this brand new spanking season preview edition. The Birds Are Back is the headliner. And new face, new era, a tribute to Matt's Pete Alonso feature, what you should check out on the Baltimore Sun. But as I just mentioned, Matt, the buzz is real, not just here, but even just walking around Camden Yards today. I think it could be a special year, maybe, we'll see, but they've certainly poured into this club, the ownership group, throughout this offseason, and we'll see if it comes to fruition under first-year manager Craig Albernas.
Yeah, it was, I'd say, a good atmosphere for a crowd of a little over 8,000 for the exhibition game there on Sunday. The Orioles certainly provided some fireworks, home runs from Gunnar Henderson and Colton Cowser and Jeremiah Jackson. As I said, winning 8-1. Kyle Bradish was on the mound. So a little sneak peek into what this Orioles team is capable of. And let's run through some news and notes here. First, just to talk about the game. Kyle Bradish goes 5 1/3, 74 pitches. He had skipped a start because his last start was canceled by a rain delay, so said he was a little bit rusty, fastball command. That was something that Craig Albernas talked about after the game as well, but understandable when you haven't pitched in 11 days in a competitive environment. So one last tune-up for him. Craig Albernas did officially cement the rotation to begin the year. Bradish will officially start that second game against the Twins on Saturday, followed by Shane Baz on Sunday. After that, it will be Chris Bassett opening that series against the Rangers Monday, and Zach Eflin on Tuesday to finish out that first turn on the rotation. Josh, just as you look at this rotation and you see Kyle Bradish here today or yesterday for our audience, what stands out to you about just how this group is lined up?
Well, first I want to point out that when we picked our opening day starter back in our first or second episode, I went with Rogers, and
I went with Bradish. But hey, I feel good about my prediction of Bradish is going to have the better year. That's my personal prediction.
Man, I just there are these episodes where we're going to revisit our war draft, et cetera.
Yeah.
But man, getting back to your question on just how Bradish fills out the top end of the rotation. Man, I think it's certainly not a shabby option. I mean, there were many other scenarios where you could see him getting the ball on opening day, but I think early on with his workload, only made 6 starts at the big league level last year, coming off his injuries. I don't think it would be the worst thing for them to manage and just watch not only innings, but with the amount of pitches as he's creeping up there, just to really make sure that he is fully himself, because that slider is sure still spinning. And his career ERA, man, I mean, it sits pretty good at around a 3.4. And so if he's able to maintain and just sit right there around that 3 mark throughout this season, while let's see 150, 160 plus innings from Kyle Bradish, then that's a pretty good duo between him and Trevor Rogers.
Yeah, and this is old news at this point for the listening audience, but Dean Kramer was optioned to minor league camp over the weekend, cementing him as beginning the year in AAA Norfolk. Certainly a surprise move from the standpoint of, he led this team in wins and innings last year. Certainly was a reliable arm, 4.19 ERA. A guy who would crack a rotation for over half the teams in Major League Baseball. But it's a good problem to have, as the cliche goes, a luxury to have in AAA Norfolk somebody of Kramer's ilk. He had a minor league option remaining. The Orioles electing to maintain as much roster flexibility as possible, send him down with the understanding that he'll probably be back up here, maybe even before the end of April. But the way the schedule lined up to start the year, I believe it's 5 off days in the first 5 weeks. So the way that lined up there, guys were going to be on 6-7 days rest in between starts. That's just not really optimal, especially early on as guys are building up their arms. You want to get them on that regular cadence, and there are already enough off days as it is where guys are going to be pitching on extra days rest. So while a surprising move to send Kramer down, certainly one that I think makes a lot of sense.
Man, 30 years old, 126 starts in his major league career. I mean, Mike Elias said he handled it with class, so that's what you would hope. But I mean, it had to be some sort to have that much big league experience. A bit of a gut check, but hopefully in Dean's case that it's a short stint down there. The off days and just how the schedule rolls out over these first couple of weeks does play into the team's favor with being able to play roster tricks elsewhere. And there's no doubt that Dean Kramer and even Cade Povich, someone we talked about, who has valuable big league experience dating back to last season, they're going to provide some big innings for this club, and hopefully it's not at the expense of health to the rest of the rotation. But I do imagine at some point this season we'll be seeing them making that trip up here to Baltimore or wherever the team may be to fill in some big innings.
And I do wonder, I think they're going to bring him up at some point, and it'll be a 6-man rotation, whether that's in the middle of April when they have a long stretch of games in a row, or into May once they kind of get past all of these big off days and it gets into more maybe a regular schedule. How long a 6-man rotation could last? I mean, obviously, injuries are going to happen, and at some point, they'll go down to 5 by necessity. But if they have guys, 6 guys at once for 2, 3, 4 weeks, is there a certain point where you maybe send Kramer back down again? Is he somebody who you're saying, hey, when we call you back up, you're going to be up and that's it? It just is because of the weird scheduling? Or is he going to be somebody who has to be shuttled back and forth throughout the year just because, they fill him in when they need him? I mean, at a certain point, you don't want your Trevor Rogers and your Kyle Bradishes to get fewer starts over the course of the season. You want them to be able to maximize their talents and make sure you're getting guys like that pitching as much as possible, because that's helping you win as much as possible, because I don't think anyone's going to argue that Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish offer you a better chance to win than Dean Kramer does on a start-to-start basis.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, our colleague Jacob Calvin-Meyer wrote about this, but just looking at the list of the rotation from last year to this year, then see guys like Dean and Cade starting the season in AAA Norfolk, and there might be some more guys on the way there, honestly, over these next couple days. But it just speaks to the depth of this rotation, and we'll see if it holds up. Though I mean, it's all you can feel all glowy when the records are spotless, and once everything else starts flying, and and even Craig Albernaz today alluded to the expected mid-season skid. It's how do those guys respond with their communication and being able to pick each other up during those times.
Yep. And a couple other news and notes here, but before we jump into what we learned from spring training, Keegan Aiken dealing with an adductor strain that he suffered warming up for, I believe it was the final game of spring training before they headed north. He is receiving imaging on that. Craig Albernaz said that he'll have an update for us on Monday. Dylan Beavers is dealing with a knee injury that stemmed from a quad issue that kind of bled down to his knee. They're slow playing him right now. It was definitely something he could have played through in the regular season. Does not appear to have his opening day status in jeopardy. So they are just kind of taking things slow with him the next couple of days. Obviously was not in the lineup against the Nationals on Sunday. Luis Vasquez left the game after being hit by a pitch in the right thumb. Seemed like he got hit pretty good. Apparently got stitches after the game as well, and had to go and get x-rays. So not sure where that stands, but Vasquez, a utility infielder in the conversation for that last bench spot. Heston Kjerstad dealing with a hamstring injury. He is also getting imaging right now. Another thing where Craig Albertaz says he'll have more for us on Monday. So his status up in the air. And then finally, Taylor Ward, which I didn't put in the notes here, but Taylor Ward was not in the lineup as well Sunday because he is with his wife, who just gave birth to the couple's third child, a baby boy that Craig Albertaz said came in weighing 10 pounds, 7 ounces. Said he would be profiling well as a pinch hitter for him on that team.
Man, he's going to be a tank when he already
that's
is.
a big baby, man.
Yeah, he's on the Samuel Basayo trajectory. But hopefully, I mean, in Ward's case, they say that, that whenever they give birth in season, they're partners, man. Hopefully he gets some of that dad strength.
That's right. Well, he's supposed to rejoin the team around Tuesday or Wednesday, so fully expect for him to be in that opening day lineup.
Potential leadoff hitter.
Potential leadoff hitter, though I will say, this game I felt like was kind of an important one for Ward, just the exhibition game, just because he hasn't played in that left field area very much throughout his career, especially because they've changed it so much over the years. But with that expected to be his regular position, that left field wall is a beast. It's a very big outfield out there. And, I asked Craig Albertaz this earlier in the spring training of is it something you can prepare for? Because Ed Smith Stadium down in Sarasota does not have the same dimensions as Camden Yards. And he was like, honestly, no. You really just have to get up there and feel it out for yourself because, watching video on it is only going to do so much for you. So that is something I think to monitor early in the season is how Taylor Ward handles how big of a left field that is, because it's certainly going to be an adjustment from what he had at Angel Stadium the past few years. Yeah,
that was actually a conversation I had today with Weston Wilson, who ended up patrolling the left field in the exhibition. He says he noted there are outfields throughout MLB. He pointed to Citi Field and Camden Yards, where it just feels like they're standing quite literally on top of you there, and it takes some getting used to. So in Ward's case, hopefully the dad strength comes with him, throughout his duties in the outfield, and also where I think he's going to be needs to produce for them in order to, Grayson Rodriguez, who actually is dealing with his own health issues, in order for this trade to pay off with just 1 year of Taylor Ward. I think he's really going to have to come through. So hopefully dad strength is in power.
Ward also led the team in walks in spring training, so certainly coming in, showing a patient approach, which you'd love to see from a leadoff hitter. The Grayson Rodriguez dealing with dead arm. Not something that seems like they're overly concerned about. They haven't completely shut him down from throwing. They're just slowing him down, but does not seem like he's going to be ready for opening day. So already, lingering worries about Grayson Rodriguez from Baltimore proving to be somewhat of a thing here for the Angels. I mean, you trade for Taylor Ward because you understand that Grayson Rodriguez is probably not going to give you a full workload in 2026, and if you're maximizing your wins in 2026, I think Taylor Ward is certainly going to be better in that regard. And after what we saw from him in spring, certainly looks like he is going to be in a good spot going into the season. So let's talk about spring, though. And spring training now wrapped up, as we said, the Orioles finished just below 500 in Grapefruit League play. Spring training records don't matter, but certainly players' performance, their confidence, what things they're working on, they do. So I wanted to kind of go back and forth here with Josh on the biggest things we learned from Orioles spring training. Josh, what's the number one thing for you?
Man, we hinted at this a little bit, but the rotation is as deep as it's been in recent years, and I'd argue in the Elias era. You look at the comparisons from last year to this year, to have Zach Eflin be your opening day starter, and now he opens the 2026 season as number 5.
Yep.
I cannot tell you how many teams that happens how often that happens across this sport, and it's a testament to first, I guess, Mike Elias identifying this as an issue. I mean, there were a lot of issues that spread like rapid fire that I wrote this in a recent column, but that surfaced throughout last season, but the woeful pitching and just how bad the starting rotation was between injuries and just poor performance altogether, that put a team in a sinkhole over the first 2 months of the season, resulted obviously in Brandon Hyde being fired and the season being a wash by the trade deadline when they shipped off 9 players. So when you restack and reorganize this rotation, and I'm bullish on a few guys, but I actually wanted to ask you this, Matt. Were you surprised that when Craig Albernaz revealed the rotation today that Baz was 3?
Yeah, I wonder how much to read into that a little bit of Bassett being the 4, Baz being the 3. I mean, they gave up a lot to get Baz from Tampa Bay. Certainly was a big swing for them prospect-wise, but they also gave $18.5 million to Chris Bassett, who is somebody who's been around the league for a long time and certainly has the respect of the coaching staff and the front office. So I kind of expected to see Bassett at number 3. Whether or not it's really the Orioles basing that on what they think of the 2 guys, or Bassett coming into camp a little bit later and what his schedule looked like, I don't know if that's necessarily something to read into, but I do think it's interesting just to have Baz as the 3, and I just think it kind of shows. I mean, literally the day before camp started, Craig Albernaz goes on a national media call and says that Shane Baz has Cy Young upside. That was the tone that was set for Shane Baz going in to camp, and I think what he showed throughout camp absolutely flashed that upside. So I don't know if Chris Bassett has that necessarily in him at this point. I mean, Cy Young caliber upside. I think he still has all-star caliber upside at this stage of his career. I mean, still a guy who can put an ERA up in the mid-3s, but
reliability.
Right, and that's certainly what you're hoping for out of a number 4 starter. And I think Bassett could be better than your prototypical number 4 starter. But Baz, I think you could make the case that he has the opportunity to be just as good as a Kyle Bradish or a Trevor Rogers in 2026.
And there's no way to quantify how valuable Bassett's experience, not just his collective MLB experience, but even his recent postseason experience and the roles that he played, and being able to share that with the room that he now joins as a veteran, and to be slotted in the 4 spot, and even in Baz's case where he's slotted in the 3 spot in a comfortable spot where he's going to be able to settle in and hopefully provide that Cy Young upside, because I am buying a lot of Shane Baz stock. Man, I think the recordings on just the whiffs that he had, especially late in spring when his body started to put it all together, is what he told me. You just really like that in terms of what he's going to be able to provide, especially given what they gave up for him, and essentially replacing that Grayson Rodriguez and those innings that they've been missing from Grayson. But man, this rotation I feel like is in a great spot. We'll see if it translates.
But let me ask you this. If this was a playoff rotation, right? Say we're going to the playoffs right now. Are you putting Baz 3? Do you think the Orioles put Baz 3? Or do you think if you got to win the game tomorrow, are they going to a Bassett or an Eflin first?
Man, on the spot?
On the spot. I know, we didn't prep this at all. The question kind of came to me. I have an answer, but I want to hear what you think.
And are we talking like a 5-game?
Yeah, let's say it's 7-game series, and you get 4 starters. Who would be your 4 starters in order? I mean, I'm guessing it would be Rogers and Bradish, but then who do you go 3-4?
I think right now you got to go Baz and Bassett just based on Eflin. And I know Eflin is coming off a pretty good outing, but based off the injury and what the stress pitches that come in that type of environment, I think I'm sticking with how the Orioles and Craig Albernaz has laid out.
That's interesting. I go Eflin 3, honestly. Eflin was their number 2 starter in the playoffs in 2024, opening day starter in 2025. You weren't here when they traded for him in 24, but down that stretch, man, he was their best pitcher. Corbin Burns struggled in August mightily and then kind of put it back together in September and was brilliant in the playoffs, with his 1 start. But Zach Eflin legitimately was the ace of that staff for the last 2 months of the season after that trade. It made that trade look awesome right off the bat, and obviously the way 2025 went kind of, maybe jaded that a little bit. But he was exactly what the Orioles needed when they traded for him down the stretch, and I think that the upside of Zach Eflin at this stage of his career is as high as it's been in his entire career. Now that he's gotten his back thing figured out, I really do think that he is going to be able to put it all together in a way that we haven't seen since he was able to put up Cy Young votes with the Tampa Bay Rays.
If you do follow the money, That would point at Bassett and Eflin to
Honestly,
take those spots.
I think I would put Bassett 4, and I would have Boz as my weapon out of the bullpen. Like, just if it's right now, like we just haven't seen Shane Boz do it yet. Like, there's all the potential in the world.
Yeah.
But if game's on the line, the season's on the line right now, I'm going with the proven guys.
Yeah. And there's certainly reasons.
That's all just to say that like the way that they're lining up the rotation right now is not reflective of you're the number 1, you're the number 2. Like, that's not something that gets settled until October. And I don't think that fans should look at this and be like, wow, Shane Boz is already the 3. Like, we just have to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, I do have like my worries again about the overall potential of this rotation, and just truly is if it is a World Series caliber rotation. I mean, everything has to be clicking for them to really want to make a push, and there's just a lot of excitement right now, and really not ways to quantify it in terms of what they've all produced collectively in their individual careers. So
yeah.
But now the lights are about to turn on.
We'll see how it goes. And speaking of that, I'm going to move on into my first takeaway here from spring training, and that's that Coby Mayo is going to get a real opportunity here. Now, going into spring training, we knew that Jordan Westburg was dealing with some kind of obliques issue. We didn't think it was going to affect his opening day status. We find out that indeed it is. It's an elbow, and he has to get PRP injections and is going to be out for the start of the year. And then Mike Elias talks on Saturday and says that he is not even going to be ready for that original May 1st timeline. Not that he necessarily had any setbacks, but that he just has a bit of a ways to go in that timeline. So we're going to see Coby Mayo here start at third base for at least the first 5 or 6 weeks, and he has taken all the reps at third base, fully entrenched there now. Still a little bit shaky, had a throw in the exhibition game against the Nationals on Sunday that he skipped, and Ryan Mountcastle had to pick it out of the ground. It's going to be a work in progress here at third base. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's not something where I think they're expecting him to come in and be even league average third baseman. He might be a below league average. But at the plate in spring, he looked fantastic, one of their most prolific hitters in spring training. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into the regular season. We see it all the time. Guys who are bad in spring turn it on in the regular season and vice versa. But I do think that what we saw from Coby Mayo in September last year, going into the offseason, going into the prospect pedigree that he has with the results that we've seen him have at the AAA level, I think there's a lot of confidence from this Orioles front office and the coaching staff and his teammates that Coby Mayo is going to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm really intrigued, and I think it's one of the most interesting things about this team going into the start of the season is what does Coby Mayo look like with a real opportunity to see some playing time. Yeah,
and we've talked about this almost ad nauseum in terms of just how incredible he can look on some throws, and just where the glove and the arm disappears on an average routine play, like the one that he skipped today to Mountie. And in your conversation with Miguel Cairo, that your Q&A that's up on Baltimore Sun, just what was your biggest takeaway from that and his teaching points to this infield? Because Coby Mayo going to be manning that hot corner for the next month and a half or so.
Yeah, he said a lot of it came down to his gather in where he takes the ball and getting into a fluid movement. Is putting himself in the position before the throw to make it repeatable, because he's such a big guy. He's got big limbs, maybe even a little big for a third baseman, which usually if a guy's too big at short, you move him to third. But, I mean, he's a guy that, there's a reason he was moved over to first base in the first place, because, he didn't necessarily profile as a third baseman. That's where they need him now. So it's about repeating those mechanics. It's about getting into a position where it's going to become muscle memory for him. Obviously, after re-picking up the position, that's going to take some time. It's something he's going to have to do into the regular season. But after the way we saw him last year working pregame every single day, saw him out there with John Mabry, who they brought on to the coaching staff in the second half of the season, every day working on taking ground balls, working on picking it, the mechanics, the footwork, everything at first base. I got to tell you, it was one of the more impressive things to see out of a young player out there as much as anybody, every single day working on his craft. And so I fully expect to see that with him at third base this year as he tries to get settled in there, because, like I said, it looks like Jordan Westburg is not going to be back anytime soon. So that's kind of going to be his position to take and run with.
If I told you at the beginning of spring training that the top 2 hitters on the team, I think one of them would be expected in Pete Alonso. If you told me Coby Mayo was going to tie Pete Alonso in the team lead for hits after Grapefruit League play, man, I would have definitely gave you a double take. And just I know he had that hot September to close out last year, but man, to his credit, he's been putting in the work at the plate, and we'll see if this discipline and not just his approach and power coming through, but really just when you're talking ball with him, it seems like he's in a good spot right now mentally. So just especially given the all the movement that the organization has asked for him in recent seasons, but now a clear pathway to playing time over these next 2 months.
Man, I got to tell you, I went down to Norfolk in 24 and watched him when he was with the Tides. And when he is right, the ball is just exploding off of his bat. It's effortless power. Comes straight from the core up, and a beautiful swing to boot. So, there's a reason that he was a consensus top 30 prospect in baseball. No one really knew where his long-term defensive home would be, the Orioles included. I mean, the outfield has been floated for him as well. But if that bat can find a way to play, it is going to be a carrying power for him, and something that this Orioles lineup is just going to get longer and longer the more guys like that are able to step up. But let's go back to you, Josh. Number 2 takeaway from spring training.
Team high 12 RBIs, by the way, for Kobe Mayo. So just keep on
stacking. The clutch,
yeah,
too?
Just keep on stacking the numbers. Man, my second, what I learned from spring training, Rico Garcia, man, he could be a sneaky budget arm out of the bullpen. When he re-signed with the team on a 1-year deal, just a little over the minimum, under $1 million, man, you wondered if this was going to be at what role would he fit on this team after seeing some different roles throughout last season in different situations and coming out of the pen. Man, not only did he get his experience in WBC playing for Team Puerto Rico. Shout out to Rico Garcia, half Puerto Rican, half Filipino. Also hailing from Hawaii, man. Very diverse background, but man, 6 appearances, including the exhibition today. 0 runs, 0 hits, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. That's a pretty clean line, man.
Hey, with no Andrew Kittredge to start the year, and now looking like no Keegan Aiken, the Orioles are going to need some guys to step up in the back end of that bullpen. They really, beyond Ryan Helsley right now, don't have any set options for the 6th, 7th, 8th innings. I mean, fully expect to see Yennier Cano in the mix there. They feel good about him in the spring he's had so far, but Rico Garcia could certainly be in that mix. He was using a fireman role very effectively last year, most notably against the Boston Red Sox, coming in with the bases loaded and nobody out and getting out of a jam. A very memorable performance for me that sticks out in my mind from last year. So, Garcia, he mixed in that gyro slider towards the end of last year, something the Mets actually introduced to him. And, he brought that over to Baltimore, and I think that's worked really well with his repertoire. So I'm really interested to see what Rico Garcia can do. He seems like a lock for this bullpen at this point.
Yeah, and Craig Albernaz pointed to his pitch usage and how he did not use his curveball as much in the WBC, and now he's incorporating that more, that he's back with the club. And, man, just been lights out this spring. And like what you said, none of these spring stats mean anything. Kobe Mayo could start the season cold against Minnesota. Rico Garcia could come in and give up a couple bombs right off the rip, and then everything is thrown out the door in terms of just the projection and where they were entering the season coming off spring. But you could not ask for a better spring outing from Rico Garcia.
No doubt. All right, moving right along. I'm going to talk about Craig Albernaz for a second. I know we've talked about his impact on this team a lot, but I do want to say that one of my main takeaways here is Craig Albernaz was ready. He was ready for this job, and coming into your first time managing a big league spring training, to go out and set the tone and set one that players really seem like they've bought into and are repeating in their interviews and things like that. I mean, I do think that he has changed the culture already a little bit, and it's something in spring training it's easier to do. There's not as much adversity that you've faced so far. Guys aren't frustrated about their playing time or, being in slumps at the plate or, roles changing, whatever it might be. It's easier to do in spring training. But I will say that he has come in and carried himself like a pro, like somebody who has done this before. And, to his credit, he hasn't exactly on this coaching staff surrounded himself with a bunch of veteran people that are in his ear. Miguel Cairo maybe being an exception there, and some of the coaches that he inherited on his staff. But a lot of the guys he brought in, are guys that are younger than him. Your Joe Singleys, your Donnie Eckers of the world. They're guys that maybe aren't as well traveled as him in terms of being with different organizations. He is coming in and saying, I know how to run things, and done it his way. And I got to say, there's some respect there for that. And I think players are buying into it too.
To your credit, Matt, I think we kind of saw this coming on our reporting, based on everyone that we spoke to who he had interacted with much earlier in his career. And man, so, there were just many times throughout this spring where I did my best to just take in everything, just being around Craig Albernaz. And he was asked today, what was his biggest takeaway from this spring, and his answer made me laugh a bit, but he said honestly nothing. Nothing was in terms of that what surprised him, nothing in terms of the biggest takeaway, and it just felt like normal baseball for not only him but the staff that he assembled. And even going back to spring training, when he was asked several weeks into camp, what has been the biggest change for you climbing into this managerial role, he joked, but I think he was serious, that he said it was talking to media. He said, I love running the show from this step in terms of how everything was being facilitated and distributing responsibilities amongst his staff. Joe Singley obviously has a lot of responsibilities as the field coordinator, but man, business as usual for Craig Albernaz. And now as we turn into the season, we'll see if he can keep, business is booming right now, so can it continue into the season? For now, he has the show well on the road.
That is the ultimate test. And at the time of our viewers listening, your story on Craig Albernaz and Blake Butera will have come out, so certainly go to BaltimoreSun.com. Josh did I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's an excellent feature on the relationship between the two skippers, separated by only the Beltway.
Yeah, now I'll touch on that real quick. Their first interaction, Blake Butera came into rookie ball. Craig Albernaz was his hitting coach. Blake Butera lasted exactly 2 seasons in rookie ball before he flared out and transitioned to coaching. He hit around 200 with Craig Albernaz as his hitting coach, just 1 home run. But the relationship went well beyond, or extended far beyond whatever Albie was telling him at
you guys got to really hit it off. If you're going to make it past that.
Yeah, and I don't want to tease the story too much, but you can check it out at BaltimoreSun.com. But there were just many instances of how they hit it off. So Blake had played at Boston College, so they hit it off right away with Craig Albernaz being from Massachusetts and that accent of his. And man, just 2 years later, so after his career flamed out, Albie gave him a call and asked him to be his bench coach with Low A Hudson Valley. And man, now the story is written for both of them, climbing their way back here, or up through their respective climbs with the Tampa organization and other teams. And man, like what you said, across the Beltway, Albie makes the return trip today back to DC.
That's right. Butera, the manager of the rebuilding Nationals, who are going through a lot of changes throughout their organization. Certainly going to be interesting to see how this new regime changes things up after a long-standing one from them dating back to the 2019 World Series. So last takeaway for you, Josh, from spring training. What do you got?
Man, after ownership added Chris Bassett, Mike Elias got the approval from ownership to add Chris Bassett, the Orioles now expected to exceed their highest, or enter rather, with their highest opening day payroll in club history. So you look at the finances allocated to the roster itself on the field. And man, we just got back from Camden Yards. I gotta say, man, they did a nice job, and they're still ongoing with a bunch of the things that they're doing to the stadium. Really elevated the ballpark experience. I know so much attention being paid to the video board and the scoreboard, but man, I mean, we're not part of that 1 percentile that's going to be walking through that Truist Club and actually enjoying games there, but it does look pretty spanking new to be viewing games from there. And the new sound system sounds great, and we haven't even heard it to its full potential. The Orioles are saving for all their full show of tricks for opening day, and you've done great coverage of what they've poured into the facility down there at Sarasota, what Mike Elias described as the best indoor hitting facility in the world. My takeaway: ownership is pouring as much as not only as much as they can, but as much as this fan base has ever seen. And I know it's difficult when you look at the Dodgers of the world and the Blue Jays and what they're spending on payroll. But if you just take 10 steps back and look at comparatively what this roster looks like compared to 5, 10 years ago under the previous ownership with the Angelos family, and even when Mike Elias came here and took over, coming over from Houston. Ownership is pouring it in, man. And I think there's still some space there. They said that they could have two splashes. They got one in Pete Alonso. They did not land a multi-year ace, which many fans have been clamoring about. And you can be frustrated to a certain extent with that. But again, when you take a few steps back, the money's being poured in, and now I think the urgency really has to come through on the field. And man, I could go on and on about just the excitement levels that we feel, but ownership is pouring in, and so we're gonna see very soon if it pays off.
Yeah, and certainly they have set a new level for their payroll, but as you say, I do think there is some room for them to go a little bit deeper. We saw that in 2024 with some of the contracts that they picked up at the trade deadline. The Zach Eflin deal, I mean, he was paid $18 million last year. But also Eloy Jimenez, who was owed, he was on a $20 million contract in 2024. So a couple of the moves they made, not all of them paid off, obviously, with Eloy Jimenez, but they were willing to take on more money. They have made a bunch of upgrades to the ballpark, to Sarasota, and now with the last year, their opening day payroll was much higher than their end of year payroll because they traded guys at the trade deadline. Trading your Ryan O'Hearns of the world is going to save you some money. So I have to think that some of the savings there that they got at the end of last year could then be put in. And while they did set a record for opening day payroll going this year, it is only a little bit higher than what it was. So
still around the middle of the pack in MLB.
If they're truly going to increase spending from what it was, I mean, there has to be more room there too. So I just think that what that means is when we get to the trade deadline, if there's a Tarek Skubal who's making, I believe it's $32 million this year, is that what he got in arbitration? There might be room to make a splash for a guy, even if he's making a lot of money and not having to require the team that's trading him to eat salary. So whether the Orioles farm system is in shape to make those moves at the deadline, we'll see. Whether the team is in contention at that point, we also have to see. But I do think that there is room to go up from here. And with the state of MLB and a potential lockout this offseason, I think that we're not actually going to truly see what David Rubenstein is willing to do as an owner in terms of spending until we get past this entire CBA negotiation and understand what baseball's near to mid-range future is going to look like. That's when I feel like we'll see Rubenstein truly open up the checkbook in a way that he feels like he can comfortably do to a max.
Yeah, and you look at the Mike Elias factor in all of this. This is his second offseason under working with David Rubenstein and the rest of the ownership group. And essentially his wallet grew or opened up more last offseason. And he acknowledged all of those misses and just the state of the rotation that they entered with two aging guys and Charlie Morton and Sugano and how poorly that went, and how here we are. We spent a whole episode talking about how the upside of this rotation and just how deep it looks with guys who are not part of the rotation at the start of the year. So, and then one more note that I want to point out is that I think this could be. I mean, there's so much pressure on him, and I didn't get the chance to watch him up close because he was with Team Canada during WBC pool play down there during my time down there in Sarasota. But man, he had a double off the left field. Off the left field corner today. Yeah. Man, and he was at second base like before I could even look up to see where the ball was. So I mean, like if Tyler O'Neill, who was the first free agent for Michael Elias to land on a multi-year deal, if he can come through and just a fraction of what they are expecting from that deal, then things are starting to look kind of upward here in terms of his impact and how the expectations that he came coming off his deal, and obviously he had no choice but to opt in this season.
Yeah, I think there is some expectation from fans that he's going to be the short side platoon with Dylan Beavers, and I just don't see that happening. One, he's one of the highest paid players on the team. Two, he's signed through next year, so it's very much within your best interest to see what Tyler O'Neill can do with a good runway, because you have him again next year, so you want to give him every opportunity to bounce back. And three, a lot of the data suggests he got unlucky last year, and fans don't want to hear it. He got hurt. He didn't perform. They give him this big contract, and he doesn't do it. I get that. But at the end of the day, he's here. He looks great. He's in great shape. And I think, he moves better than you'd expect for somebody who almost has a Giancarlo Stanton-esque reputation of being immobile and injury-prone. Like, this is a guy who's won 2 Gold Gloves, and one's kind of a Mickey Mouse one. It was 2020, and it was a little bit while ago. But he does move well in the outfield. He looks lighter this year, as we've talked about. I'm really interested to see what Tyler O'Neill does. I'm buying the dip.
Maybe he's a bottle of wine that ages, and the best comes later towards the end of the deal.
Every 3 years, he'll play 120 plus games and hit 30 home runs. Like, maybe this is going to be that year. They signed him a 3-year deal. It's bound to happen at least one of these years. So if you can get a little bit lucky and have some health from good health from Tyler O'Neill, what that does for this offense. I mean, talk about the struggles that they had against left-handers last year. I mean, just like that could turn to a massive strength for this team between Tyler O'Neill bouncing back and the additions of Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso. And not to mention, a left-hander started this game against the Nationals, Mitchell Parker, and Gunnar Henderson and Colton Cowser, 2 left-handed hitters, go left on left and homer off of them. So maybe they're turning things around.
How about Colton Cowser going to Utah Street?
First time of his career.
Doesn't count, though.
Doesn't count. He was very disappointed to learn that.
They have a Mickey Mouse type plaque that they
he said he's going to go out there and put some sticker down just for himself. So I might have to go check that out on Thursday, see if he actually went out there or not. But
you'll have to remake the video skit that you did.
That's right. I will. But yeah, with the power potential of this team, Orioles in 2024 were second in the major leagues in home runs behind only the Yankees. This team certainly has potential to be the most prolific slugging team in baseball, and it's not like they haven't done it before.
And everywhere Dustin Lin has been, at all his stops, the chase rate has gone down. Everywhere he's been. And, we're seeing patient approaches from guys like Kobe Mayo, Taylor Ward, who we mentioned earlier.
We'll say, though, Colton Cowser had like a 35% strikeout rate in spring training, so that is something that it looked like he was working on.
Maybe that effect hasn't reached him yet.
Right. We'll have to see how that translates to the regular season. But I do want to get into my last thing here that I learned from spring training. And getting back to the rotation, and a guy that we've kind of glossed over here is Trevor Rogers. Honestly, my takeaway is that Trevor Rogers' second half was not a fluke. And, we saw what looked like maybe a tough to sustain stretch here from Trevor Rogers last year, because there was no elite strikeout rate, not elite command. The velocity is not exactly blowing anybody away. But I do think that mechanically he has found a way to make his stuff a little bit more deceptive. Really feels like it's coming out of your nose or up your nose. The extension that he has in his delivery as well, one of the better ones for a guy of his height. So, the fastball plays up a little bit faster than his velocity. And he added a couple of ticks. He was at 92 a couple of years ago, and now he's at 94. So being able to just get that kind of velocity back, I think, was a great sign. And he's carried that over into spring training. Spring training results aside, the 2.5 ERA that he had, I just think that the way he has gone up there and just continually produced out after out after out, whether it be ground balls, whether that be fly balls, I think tells you, one, that they've got sound approaches for his stuff against particular hitters, but two, that there is no drop-off from what we saw last year into this year. Will there probably be some regression? Yeah, it's hard to maintain a 1.81 ERA. But at the same time, if Trevor Rogers can be healthy enough to give you 170-plus innings this year.
With like a high 2 ERA, I'm taking that.
I'm giving him Cy Young votes. There are legitimately 3 guys, maybe 4 guys in this rotation to get Cy Young votes. And Trevor Rogers, I still think Kyle Bradish is going to be the true ace of the staff by the end of the year. But I do think that we definitely have seen Trevor Rogers turn a page in his career, and he's not going to just suddenly fall back to the guy that he was before his breakout last year.
Yeah, and Craig Albernas spoke about that today ahead of Trevor Rogers' opening day start, and yeah, I don't want to tease too much, but I'm cooking something up on Trevor Rogers just to build up the excitement for opening day here at Camden Yards.
Looking forward to it. We're going to go ahead and wrap there on our spring training bookend here, kind of closing the book on spring training. But like we talked about, we have some really fun stuff for you guys this week with opening day. We'll be back on Thursday morning with our full-on season previews. Josh, I've got some spicy takes for my predictions, so I'm really looking forward to putting that together with you. And then, like I said, after opening day game, Josh and I will link up, maybe on the field, maybe outside the ballpark, somewhere over there, and get a quick episode for you guys, talk about the game, and fill that empty void that is the Friday after opening day, something I will never fully understand.
Man, let's start the season hitting 100. I'm sorry, 1,000.
Let's not hit 100.
We're still in spring training.
That's right. Like I said, we're going to wrap there. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Pick up a newspaper.
Pick up a newspaper. Why not? You know, we got some fun stuff in here from myself, Josh, and Jacob Calvin Meyer.
The birds are back.
The birds are back, baby. Thank you all so much for listening, and have a good one.